They knocked the new girl out cold. No warning, no mercy, just 2 hits in the dark. And she dropped. Hard. The instructors laughed, called it a lesson, wrote it off as combat prep, because to them, she was just another overcleared observer. No trident on her chest, no reputation in the room, just a quiet face with a tucked-in badge. And no one asking where she came from. But what they didn't know was that the girl they floored? She was a Navy SEAL, and she wasn't unconscious. She was waiting for the moment to wake up, step back onto the mat, and end the fight in seconds. Now, before we show you the exact chokehold that dropped the smug off their faces and the line she delivered that froze the whole gym in place, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, tap subscribe with the bell icon on, and get ready. Because this time, the new girl wasn't new. She was trained. The wind coming off the Pacific always carried weight. Not loud, not violent, just steady on the far western edge of the naval installation. Beyond the razor wire perimeter and rusting cargo containers, waves cracked against the seawall. Down here on the combat deck, there was no room for drift. Lieutenant Commander Arya Keene stepped off the idling personnel truck without ceremony. No one greeted her. Her boots landed clean on the asphalt, duffel slung over her shoulder. Tan uniform, no name patch, no visible insignia, just a plain clip badge, observer clearance interbranch rotation. Behind tinted glass inside the truck, a young enlisted Marine watched her walk toward the gate. "You think she's admin?" he murmured. "Probably audit control," his buddy replied. "Another clipboard officer." She wasn't carrying a clipboard. Past the checkpoint, metallic clangs echoed, kettlebells slamming to concrete, sparring mats being reset. The salt hung thick, mixing with engine oil and sun-baked gravel. From behind the supply annex, Sergeant Baker leaned against ammo crates. "That her?" Corporal Rudd squinted past the haze. "Yep, Keene. Behavioral placement from Joint Ops Command. No record in the system. Looks like a placeholder." Baker snorted. "She got that a don't touch me look. Probably here to write a report." She asterisk is asterisk a report. The two of them chuckled as she passed, her pace unhurried, head straight. She didn't look at them. But somehow, she took in everything. Her eyes skimmed the mat spacing, the armory locks, the gate guard, who saluted 2 beats too late. She said nothing, but she noted it all. The operations board near the watchtower listed current evals and assigned roles. Her name was posted near the bottom, digitally scrolled in institutional gray Keene. A. Observer. Rotation 4 to no fanfare. No welcome. Just a name on a board. She exhaled once, adjusted her shoulder strap, and stepped into the complex. Just another quiet woman with a pass, and no one, not yet, bothered to ask what she was really there to see. The midday sun didn't hit Black Harbor directly. It refracted off steel plating, off tinted windows, off sweat-darkened gravel. The close quarters response group had assembled without delay. Mixed uniforms. Marines, Navy, a few contractors in regulation PT kits. No ranks visible on the mat, just numbers on vests and taped initials. That's how Baker ran his drill teams. Anonymity bred hierarchy. Real hierarchy in his eyes, not the kind sewn onto collars. "All right," he barked, tossing a pair of gloves to one of the recruits. 1-minute grapples. Take the legs or hold the top position. No taps, just pins. Arya stood at the edge of the ring, adjusting her wrist wraps. Slim black gloves, not reinforced, standard issue. Baker turned toward her, half grin curling up one cheek. "You planning to type us to death, Commander?" A few snickers broke out. She looked up. "I plan to stay on my feet," she said. There wasn't a single note of sarcasm in her voice, which somehow made it worse. Corporal Rudd stepped forward. "We pairing by rank or weight class?" Baker shrugged. "Neither. We're pairing by reality. You want to lead? You'd better survive the tumble." He motioned to Arya. "After you, ma'am." She stepped in without hesitation. The mat was coarse, foam on rubber texture, a bit slick from the last round. She rolled her shoulders once, then dropped into a defensive stance. Knees bent, posture relaxed. Rudd moved fast, faster than she expected. He wasn't testing, he was checking. A single leg grab aimed at destabilizing her base. She shifted her weight, counterbalanced, blocked the attempt with a hip check that almost worked. But his second move came dirty. A quick inside hook disguised as a slip. His foot wrapped her ankle, and he twisted with his shoulder instead of his arm. She hit the mat hard, not flat, not clean. On her side, shoulder first, air rushing out of her in a quiet grunt. Oof! Someone muttered from the sidelines. She pushed up immediately. No wince, no hesitation, just a recalibration of footing. Rudd gave her a mock shrug. Sorry, must have slipped. She didn't respond. By the third round, the mood had shifted. Whispered remarks behind the line. No way she's SEAL Command. She's admin with clearance tags. Looks like she's never even deployed. On the terrace above, the commandant observed with arms folded. He scribbled something onto a clipboard and handed it to the assistant beside him. 5 seconds later, her performance metrics updated in the master file. No commendation, no context, just a note. Standard endurance, moderate ground retention, low counter initiative. Down on the mat, Arya stood, alone again, breathing measured, uniform dusty. Rudd gave Baker a look like he'd proved something. Baker only said, "Told you, she's a placement." But the truth was, she'd taken the fall. She hadn't missed it. She just logged it for later. By evening, the shadows across Black Harbor stretched long and thin. Most of the day's noise had faded. Just the idle hum of generators and the distant hiss of waves. Inside the mess hall, fluorescent lights buzzed while trays clattered between fingers and tabletops. The food was standard: oversalted protein, rehydrated starch, and something green no one touched. At the far table, Sergeant Baker held court like he always did, boots stretched out, spoon in one hand, opinion in the other. "You see her face when Rudd dropped her?" he said, not whispering. "I've seen rookies brace better falling off an office chair." A few laughs followed. Corporal Rudd smirked and stabbed at his chicken. She didn't even protest, just stood there like it was policy review. "That's because it is," someone added. "She's probably here to write a behavior memo." "Good," Baker said. "I'll give her something worth writing about." He didn't need to clarify. Everyone understood. "She's got one foot in the paper world," Baker continued, "and someone needs to remind her what the floor feels like." He leaned forward, voice dropping just enough to pull the others in closer. "I've been doing this 17 years, seen every flavor of leadership they wheel through here. The ones who last, they earn it in the dirt first, not in some joint ops briefing room." One of the Delta instructors nodded. "She hasn't even been downrange, far as anyone knows." "Exactly," Baker said. "So we test her, not to break her, just to see if there's anything under that uniform worth respecting." He glanced toward the window, where Arya had been sitting moments before. Empty now. Tonight, unofficial mat time, just us, no cams after 2100, standard contact rules. Rudd hesitated. "And if she files?" Baker shrugged. "She won't. People like that don't want the attention. They fold quiet or they leave. Either way, we did our job." Another round of chuckles. One of the junior instructors muttered something about combat physics. Baker tapped his spoon on the tray like a gavel. "Exactly. Physics. Mass over myth." Across the room, Arya sat alone by the window. Her tray barely touched. She hadn't looked over once, but her head was slightly tilted, her posture relaxed, the kind that only came from being aware of every word in the room. She picked up her tray, walked out without a sound. Outside, the air had cooled, salt and asphalt. She moved past the supply annex toward the barracks wing and slipped inside the shared personnel comms room. It was empty. She closed the door behind her, entered her access code on the wall-mounted console, and activated the secure uplink. The face on the screen was pixelated by the connection lag. A joint ops handler in civilian attire, headset on, eyes focused. "Progress?" he asked. "Predictable," Arya said. "Behavior matches the warning packet." Confirmed engagement? Scheduled, unofficial, this evening. He leaned forward slightly. Do you need protocol override? No, she replied. Let them run their test. A pause passed between them, the kind where authority wasn't spoken, just understood. Then the screen blinked out. Arya turned away, unzipped the smaller pouch in her duffel and pulled out her sparring wraps, not the soft leather kind, but regulation grade, reinforced stitching, fingertip exposed. She wound them slowly around her knuckles, looping tight. No flexing, no flair, just preparation. Then she unlaced her boots, retied them twice, and stood in front of the mirror. Her reflection looked steady, distant, focused. Her voice was barely audible in the empty room. Let's see what physics feels like when it hits back. The gym after hours wasn't silent, just still. Echoes hung longer. Every shift of a weight, every scuff of a boot, every breath cut through the cavernous space like someone was waiting for it. Above the mats, a single line of ceiling lights buzzed down in sequence. Half the fixtures were burnt out. The glow they cast felt like interrogation lighting, too sharp to be warm, too dim to be safe. Lieutenant Commander Arya Keen stepped through the side entrance without a word. No announcement, no hesitation, just a duffel slung over her shoulder and gloves already strapped tight. Sergeant Baker and Corporal Rudd stood near the far mat with two others, instructors from Delta Rotation, both solid, grinning, cocky. One bounced slightly on his heels like he was warming up. The other cracked his knuckles with theatrical purpose. Rudd looked her over. Didn't think you'd show. I was curious, she said simply. How much you rely on uneven odds? Baker chuckled. It's not about odds. It's about gravity. That's what people like you forget. He tossed her a mouthguard, sealed in a wrapper. You want to make this clean? Go ahead. She didn't take it. Instead, she stepped onto the mat, standing square, feet planted. Rules of contact? Full body, Rudd answered. No strikes above the collarbone, no blindside attacks. Of course, Baker added, smiling. We're professionals. Arya nodded once. Then proceed. The first few exchanges were legitimate. One of the Delta instructors moved in with a basic clinch and drag, testing her balance. She shifted low, broke contact, countered with a wrist deflection. Nothing flashy, clean. The second moved in harder, a shoulder check that would have floored most under 150 pounds. Arya rolled with it, recovered, reset her stance. Baker circled closer. You've got some balance, I'll give you that. Then came the snap. Baker lunged with a sharp left elbow. Tight, fast, not part of any agreed motion. It caught her temple on the angle just above the eye. Her head jerked, not far, but far enough. Rudd followed. Not with a strike, with a sudden shove from behind disguised as a misstep. His forearm connected with the side of her jaw as she turned to brace. That one dropped her. She hit the mat hard, not with a scream, not with a gasp, just the thick, sickening thud of a body shutting down mid-motion. Her gloves twitched. One boot scraped softly against the floor, then nothing. For 2 full seconds, the men stood frozen. Shit, one of the instructors muttered. She went down too fast. She breathing? Rudd knelt beside her. Yeah, pulse is steady. Baker crouched and checked her eyes. Out cold, clean hit. Not clean, Rudd snapped. That elbow wasn't part of it. Baker stood. Doesn't matter. She walked into the ring. She knew the risks. They dragged her gently, almost carefully, off the mat, laid her on the medical cot against the wall. No one called the med unit. No one radioed command. Write it off as heat stress, one muttered. Slipped, said another. Overexertion. She didn't even file training hours today. Baker stared down at her for a long moment. This doesn't go anywhere. The others nodded, unanimous, but as they turned to leave, none of them saw her fingers shift. No dramatic gasp. No sudden sit-up, just the subtlest intake of breath, controlled, measured. And then her eyes, still mostly shut, fluttered once, then again. Arya Keen was waking up. The air smelled like vinyl and old sweat. That was the first thing she registered. The second was the hum, low and mechanical, from the overhead fan, whose blades never moved fast enough to make a difference. It whirred just enough to cover conversation, not enough to stir the stillness. Lieutenant Commander Arya Keen opened her eyes. No flinch, no gasp, just light. Her body ached, dull, even pressure. Bruise forming, jaw tight, temple throbbing. 4 seconds inhale, hold. 6 seconds exhale. Her pulse regulated in less than 30. The room was empty. They hadn't bothered to post anyone. Just her, on the gym's spare cot, with the echo of footsteps long gone. She sat up slowly, vision stable, limbs steady. She turned toward the mirror bolted to the wall. There it was, a swollen mark across her temple, already purpling. Her lower lip split clean at the corner. She leaned forward, not to study the injuries, but the expression behind them. Neutral, calm, still here, but her mind was already running the sequence. Baker's elbow, lead arm, upward angle, textbook, cheap shot dressed as a slip. Rudd's shove from behind, coordinated timing, no accident. The third man circling left while she was down. Classic pack behavior, 3-point suppression. She'd seen it in Fallujah, seen it in Kandahar, except those men were insurgents, and these were supposed to be professionals. She flexed her jaw once. Pain spiked sharp, then dulled. Tolerable. The temple bruise would yellow out in 3 days. Split lip would seal by morning if she didn't smile. Not that she planned to. Her fingers reached down to the floor, feeling beneath the cot. Her duffel had been dumped sideways. She pulled it toward her. Inside, tucked beneath the spare gloves and uniform tee, was a small folded patch. Her regulation ID, the one the admin officer told her to remove for non-disruptive observation purposes. She flipped it over, the name stitched in black thread. Beneath it, the emblem most of these men hadn't seen in person. Nav Spec War. Group 2. A silver eagle, wings spread over crossed tridents. Not a symbol you flaunt, just one you carry. She clipped the patch behind her name tag, where it wouldn't show unless someone peeled back the layer. Then stood. Her spine held straight. Her gait didn't limp. Every joint obeyed her without protest, the kind of recovery that only came from experience, not luck. She walked once around the edge of the mat. No wobble, no anger, just recentered equilibrium. As she approached the exit, her voice was barely above a whisper, not meant for anyone else to hear. Guess we're done pretending. Then she opened the door and walked straight into the night. The gym wasn't empty this time, but it was quiet. 3 instructors, Baker, Rudd, and one of the same Delta men from the night before, stood on the mat, gloves half on, posture loose, laughing about something that didn't require a punchline. A 4th sat on the weight bench, nodding along with a smirk. They hadn't expected an audience. The door opened without warning. Lieutenant Commander Arya Keen stepped in. No gym bag, no assistant, just the faint swell of bruising on her temple, now dulled to a pale yellowish bloom and a stiffness in her left shoulder that made her turn slightly to compensate. She didn't stop walking until she reached the edge of the mat. You forgot to log the injury report. All 4 men turned. Baker blinked, then broke into a slow grin. Didn't think you'd be standing this soon. I was never lying down, she said. He stepped forward, mock concerned. If you're here to file a grievance, there's a protocol. This is the protocol, she said. Her tone hadn't changed, but something in the air had. Rudd's smirk dropped by a fraction. The Delta man beside him flexed his hands without thinking. Arya stepped onto the mat. Her boots didn't squeak. Her movements were economical, every joint aligned, weight centered. She stood squarely, no stance yet, just presence. I believe the phrase was, "Continue where you left off." Her words landed without volume, just precision. Baker laughed once, unsure. You serious? I'm operational now, rules of contact, same as before, except this time, you follow them. There was silence for a second too long, then he nodded. All right. He tossed aside his towel, raised his guard, and stepped forward, confident again, still underestimating. Her first move was defensive, simple redirection. She stepped inside his right swing, caught the arm with a wrist twist, and redirected it past her hip. Textbook. The kind of counter they taught at Bud's, then made you repeat blindfolded at 2 in the morning. He reset, came in heavier. A lunge grab combo meant to overwhelm. She ducked the forward weight, pivoted her heel, and with one open palm struck directly into the top ridge of his clavicle. A thud, not loud, just final. Baker dropped to his knees. He wheezed, couldn't lift his arm. His nervous system had short-circuited from the impact. Not broken, just shut off. "Still think physics is on your side?" she asked softly. Rudd stepped in next. Aggressive, angry, she shifted her footing. Evade, inside turn, trap, downward sweep. His feet left the ground just enough, and then he hit the mat flat, pinned, face turned, breathing shallow. The third man didn't move, neither did the fourth. Arya stood above them, calm, controlled. "This was your demonstration," she said. "Let's make sure everyone learns from it." None of them spoke. No threats, no yelling, just silence thick enough to bruise. Baker stood back up. Not all the way, just enough to roll his left shoulder and shake out the numbness. His right arm still dangled slightly at his side, but pride had already taken over where pain left off. "You had your turn," he muttered. "Now I take mine." Arya said nothing. She adjusted her stance, a subtle shift of weight to the balls of her feet, knees loose, back heel planted. No flourish, no drama, just readiness. Baker lunged with a sudden burst, ill, wild, and fast. Exactly what instructors warn recruits not to do. His body weight pushed into his lead leg, arms wide, aiming for a grappling clinch. She didn't move until the last half second. Then it happened fast. She sidestepped, redirected his momentum with her left arm across his neck, and pivoted behind him in one motion. Before his foot could even plant, her right arm locked in, deep across his throat, palm to bicep, elbow tucked, pressure tight, a textbook rear naked choke, controlled, bloodline, not windpipe. Applied properly, it doesn't take long. 3 seconds, 4, he staggered, 5, his knees buckled. She eased him to the mat, not gently, not cruelly, just with precision. His head hit the floor with a muted thump. His body slackened. 9 seconds, it was over. The other men stood frozen. The room was dead quiet, except for the bzzz of the gym's old wall timer, resetting to 0, like it had watched the whole thing and decided it was time to start again. In the far corner, a trainee, unnoticed until now, lowered a safety record phone cam that had captured the entire exchange. His eyes were wide, but he said nothing. He didn't need to. Everyone in that gym knew exactly what they'd just seen. Rudd slowly sat up on the edge of the mat, chest rising and falling. Not looking at her, not speaking. Arya looked down at them both. Then her eyes moved to the third man, the last one who hadn't stepped in. "You still standing?" she asked, not as a threat, but as a challenge. He shook his head once. "Not anymore." Her expression didn't shift. "Good." She turned and walked to the rack, picked up her gloves, unstrapped them slowly, every motion deliberate, methodical. Before she left, she spoke one final line. No malice, no volume. That's the difference between violence and control. She didn't wait for a reply. As she stepped toward the door, the trainee who'd filmed reached for the emergency injury form on the wall. His voice shook as he asked, "Do we file the report?" She didn't even turn her head. "File your own injury reports," she said, and then she was gone. No victory, no gloating, just silence, and the sound of 3 men remembering what it felt like to underestimate someone with nothing to prove. The trainee, Petty Officer Second Class Martinez, stood frozen for a full 10 seconds after she left. His phone still warm in his palm. The footage paused on the final frame. Baker slumped on the mat. Arya walking away, her posture unchanged. He replayed the choke sequence 3 times. 9 seconds, start to finish. Textbook application. The kind they taught at advanced combat schools, not admin rotations. He glanced at Rudd, still sitting on the mat's edge, breathing hard. At the third man, who'd backed against the wall and hadn't moved since. At Baker, now sitting upright, rubbing his throat. None of them looked at each other. Martinez saved the file, didn't password protect it, didn't mark it restricted, just uploaded it to the training safety server under incident documentation, instructor contact protocol, standard procedure, required for any physical engagement resulting in potential injury. By 0200, the file had been accessed 4 times. By 0430, 12. By 0600, the Commandant's office had flagged it for immediate review. The footage hit command by 0700. It wasn't leaked. It didn't need to be. The trainee who filmed it had uploaded the file directly to the facility's internal training safety archive, standard procedure for all injury-related incidents involving instructors. But this time, someone actually watched it. Inside the admin annex, the Commandant replayed the video twice. First in silence, then again with sound. He didn't flinch when Baker hit the mat, didn't blink when Arya applied the choke. He only paused once. At the moment, she said, "File your own injury reports." By 0730, a summons had already been issued. In the same conference room usually reserved for pre-deployment briefings, Lieutenant Commander Arya Keene sat straight-backed, uniform pressed, left shoulder still visibly healing beneath her fatigues. Her hands rested flat on the table. No legal counsel, no advisor, just her and the 3 officers seated across from her. Captain Sloan, lead facility director, Commander Isley, operations review, and a JAG liaison from Regional Command, who didn't bother hiding the recorder on the table. "We've reviewed the footage," Sloan said. "All of it." Arya didn't speak. Commander Isley tapped a file. "You engaged in physical combat with 3 instructors outside of scheduled operations. Care to explain?" Her voice was calm. "They initiated contact the previous night, unrecorded, off the books. I responded to their challenge with oversight and under regulation contact rules." Sloan raised an eyebrow. "You consider a chokehold regulatory?" "I consider silence more dangerous," she said, "especially when it follows a concussion-level strike to the temple." The JAG liaison cut in. "Do you have documentation of the prior incident?" Arya opened a folder, slid it across the table. Inside, timestamped photos of her injuries taken the morning after. Minor swelling, split lip, documented by the facility medic at her request. No formal report, just entries in the daily log. Attached was a printed copy of the injury waiver Baker had failed to file. The line for instructor-initiated contact was left blank. The JAG liaison leaned forward, scanning the documents. "This is the 3rd incident involving Sergeant Baker in 18 months, he said quietly, not to Arya, to Sloan. "Previous 2 were flagged but not prosecuted. Both involved junior officers. Both withdrew complaints." Sloan's jaw tightened. "I wasn't briefed on—" "You were," the JAG cut in. "Marked as resolved through peer mediation," which apparently meant the juniors transferred out and Baker stayed. He tapped the photo of Arya's bruised temple. This time, someone didn't fold. Isley leaned back, frowning. Sloan sighed. "You could have pushed for courts-martial or filed command override." "I wasn't interested in headlines," Arya said. "I was interested in standards." A long pause. The Commandant tapped the desk once, as if finalizing the moment. "Effective immediately. Sergeant Baker and Corporal Rudd are placed under suspension pending administrative separation. All instructor status revoked. The third party is reassigned without prejudice." He turned to the JAG liaison, who nodded without hesitation. "And you, Commander?" Sloan asked. She stood. "Request reassignment to operational training oversight." Easily squinted. "Not looking for commendation?" She paused just long enough. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for standards." She walked out before anyone could offer praise, and no one dared stop her. The sun dropped low over Black Harbor, casting long bands across the empty range. Most of the facility had gone quiet, and yet, on the western edge of the open field, one figure moved alone, Lieutenant Commander Arya Keene. No audience, no orders, just controlled motion. She stood facing the horizon, one arm extended, a posture drawn from her breathing drills. Her bruises still faintly marked her temple and lip, but her posture didn't show strain. Behind her, footsteps approached. A young recruit stopped 10 feet back. He didn't salute, not right away. "Ma'am?" he asked. She didn't turn, just lowered her hand slightly and waited. The recruit swallowed. "I just wanted to say, we didn't know who you were." Her voice was soft. "That's not the point." He stepped forward a half a pace. "Then what is?" She turned to face him, not stern, not proud, just steady. "The point," she said, "is that now you do." He nodded, no follow-up, no attempted apology. But this time, he did salute. She returned it with a single nod, acknowledged, not overemphasized. As he walked off, another pair of recruits slowed their jog nearby, glanced in her direction, then away. A quiet kind of respect, earned, not instructed. Arya turned back toward the ocean. Her feet stayed planted, but her shadow no longer moved alone. Behind her, the last of the sun dipped under the horizon, and what remained was silence. Not the kind born of dismissal, but the kind that follows when no one questions your place anymore. If someone knocked you out just to prove they were tougher, would you strike back right then? Or wait for the moment discipline could expose everything? And do you think real control, the kind that doesn't flinch, doesn't yell, doesn't need applause, is harder to master than raw strength? Drop your answers in the comments. We read every single one. Then tap that like button, hit subscribe, and make sure you've got the bell icon turned on so you never miss a new mission. And if you know someone who still believes silence means weakness, share this story with them. Your next video should already be up on screen. Go ahead and watch it now. We'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place.